Okay, so today we're going to talk about scholarships. I think it's a topic that a lot of us are interested in. It does take a lot of time, I think, but it could be very worth it because college is like getting really expensive, right? I think this webinar is mostly geared towards high school students, but you can actually start looking for scholarships for students that are younger. Like they have many scholarships that actually start in middle school or even elementary school that they can start looking at. But I think it's never too early to start looking. So first of all, so my name is Jennifer. Some of you know me already. I'm an independent education consultant. I went to engineering school for undergrad at Cornell, and I did my master's at University of Michigan. And then I got my certificate in independent education consulting from University of California at Irvine. And I am a associate member at the Independent Education Consultant Association, which is ICA. I also have like 12, 13 years experience working at GE. And then I also have worked as a professor at Russell Sage. So that's just a little bit about me. Right now I'm living in Portland, Oregon. I lived in New York for many years, but a couple years ago we moved to the West Coast. So that's just a little bit about me. And then you can also find more information just about me and my services at my website, www.collegecoachjen.com. So today we're just gonna kind of do an overview and planning strategy for applying for scholarships and being efficient on how we do it because it can be very confusing and very time consuming to do a lot of this work, not to mention on top of college planning and college admissions. So we'll just kind of take it one step at a time. Here is just a little bit of background. So approximately in the US, there's $8.2 billion of scholarships that are awarded every year. That's a huge number. But however, like only 11% of college students actually receive a scholarship. So that means the majority of students are not getting scholarships. And that 8.2 billion does include merit-based as well as need-based. Now we'll get into that a little bit later. But there's actually a big number, like $100 million of scholarships that are not even claimed. So there are many scholarships out there that a lot of people don't even know about. There's sometimes smaller foundations and really need to do some digging to get those. And some of them have special requirements, but many of them don't. So we'll be going into detail on a lot of these scholarships and how to find them, how to apply for them, and how to get the best chance at winning them. Okay. So here's just an overview of the different types of scholarships that are out there. We're not really gonna talk too much about financial aid in this presentation because that's kind of like a totally other topic because that's based on income and like assets and everything like that. We're mostly gonna be talking about merit-based scholarships. And within that merit-based scholarships, it could be based on academics, athletic, artistic, or community service leadership, or it could be a combination of them. And a lot of them may need some writing as well. That's kind of the bulk of the presentation. Some of the merit scholarships can be need-based as well. So depending on what kind of scholarship specifically that you're applying for, just be aware that some of them will require you to submit a FAFSA. A FAFSA is basically just a federal form that you fill in that tells about your income, assets, and things like that. So some of them will require that, but many of them don't. So we'll kind of go into that as well. We're not going to talk too much about sports-based scholarships. And here, I just want to make that distinction because, for example, like Division I schools that have Division I sports, they will give athletic scholarships specifically for recruiting student athletes. And that is also a totally other topic that we're probably not going to have time to cover today. For those scholarships, those are very specific. Like usually you have to be like the best in the state or at least the best in your region. So that is going to be a little bit different. When we're talking about merit-based scholarships on the first section here, this is really just saying like regular kind of participation. So there might be some athletic scholarships that if you're like an athlete for basketball, volleyball, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to be the best in that sport and also playing that sport in college. Okay. And then the last thing here is just military. And this again, we're not going to touch on too much. There's ROTC or military scholarships that will pay for college. But you know, that is kind of like a different topic. All right. Okay. We'll go to the next one. So finding the right fit. So I would say that is very interesting because many scholarships are out there that are based on specific niches or specific identities or fields of study. And it's almost like finding a college because you want to find a good fit. And that's kind of like the most important thing because there are so many scholarships out there that are just general to anybody. And then that automatically makes it very competitive because anybody can apply. So if you can find scholarships that fit your specific person, like character, whether it's field of study, extracurriculars, race or ethnicity, then it really narrows that scope to your own situation. So identity-based scholarships, there can be scholarship based on race, ethnicity, gender, whether you're a first generation student, any medical conditions. There's a funny one that's like, well, you might think, okay, I don't have any medical conditions, that's fine, but there are scholarships that are out there that are, say, for example, like for short people or for people who are left-handed, you know, so don't miss out on some of those special cases where you may qualify for those things. Field of study. So this one I would say is a little bit difficult for some students because many students don't know exactly what they're going to be studying. But I would say that if you're interested in a specific field or related field, then it's okay to apply for some of those scholarships. They may have restrictions on whether you're in that specific major. So for example, if you're in that major your first year, but then you're not in the major the second year, that scholarship may not renew, but it doesn't mean that you can't apply for it when you are at least considering that major or very interested in that major. Field of study, okay, extracurriculars. So this can be a lot of different things. This can be community service, this can be clubs, debate team, you know, mock trial, United Model UN, Model United Nations. It could be band, orchestra, you know, any kind of music or art activities. Now, it doesn't mean that they necessarily need to be contests, but as long as you're in those activities, then you may be eligible to apply for those scholarships that are offered by specific organizations that are trying to promote those activities. And then also employer sponsor scholarships. So these will be really good if mom or dad works at a company that offers scholarships for children of those employers. And these often are really good because, especially if it is a smaller employer, because then it really narrows the pool for who can apply for those scholarships. And you might have a really good chance if you are like a child of somebody who works in that company. And then there are also college-specific scholarships. We'll go into this in a little bit more detail in a little bit as well. But there are scholarships that are specific to certain colleges that are offered by the schools. The majority of the ones that are out there, I would say, are independent. So whether it's a foundation, organization, that is giving those scholarships, and you can go to any college with that money. But there are also college-specific scholarships that you apply specifically to the college. Now, many times they will automatically be like you will automatically be entered into those applications, if you will, when you apply for that college. But many times it's not. Many times there is also a separate college application for those scholarships. And often those scholarship deadlines are earlier than the regular admission deadlines. So I would pay really close attention to that, especially for the colleges that are your top choices. my advice would be probably like the top 3 or top 5 colleges that you're considering, and then also the top 1 or 2 safety schools that you're considering. Look at those college specific scholarships because you might be very happy if you get one of those. Okay, so how do we get organized? This is probably a very important step just because the biggest challenge I would say in scholarship search is the time. Like, where do we find the time? And I think this is actually an area that parents can help. Often I get the question like, I'm a parent and my high school student is so busy. I don't know how to help. I can make food for them, I can drive them around, but like other than that, they don't really seem like they want my help or they don't really want my advice. So I would say like one area that you can actually help your child is to help them organize their search and maybe even do some of that search for them because your student is probably going to be busy with their schoolwork, test prep, whatever, writing essays or finding out, figuring out college choices, majors, and all those extracurriculars, there's a lot on their plate. So it's really difficult to add another thing for them to be like, oh yeah, and you should also Google and find scholarships. Usually that's very low on their priority list. So I would say even start early. Ninth grade is not too early, or even before like middle school, just to start getting acquainted with what scholarships are out there. And then even during college, it's actually not too late because many scholarships actually say that you cannot apply until you are indeed enrolled in college. So there are scholarships out there that you can even apply after high school, which a lot of people don't really know about or don't really try to do. But I think that's another resource that's out there just to be aware of. So start early. Ninth grade is a good time. Summer, my son, my oldest, is actually in eighth grade right now. In ninth grade, he's going to start in the fall. So I think this summer is actually a great time to start looking for and making a list of scholarships that would apply for him. Even if some of them say you can't apply until you're in 11th grade or 12th grade, but just have those on your list so you're really ready for when those deadlines come around. And then using a tracker is really cool. I have one on my website that you can use for free. There's a link here and I can send in the chat. And I can also actually show you. It's just very simple. All it is a Google sheet and you can just start populating scholarships in that sheet. And you can use Excel, it doesn't have to be Google Sheets, whatever system that you want to use. It's great to have just like a document that is everybody can see it. Your child can see it, you can see it. If you have a college consultant, they can see it. Then you can look at it maybe like every week so that you're on track. And then using the tracker, you can prioritize by deadline and also by fit. So let's actually go into the tracker. Okay, here we go. I think this is the Google Sheet. So I will send the link in the chat and I will send it out in the email afterwards as well. This is just a free sheet that you can use. I have it as view only. So what you need to do is go in here and just make a copy. That way you can have it for yourself. Then you won't be able to edit this one, but this is a template that you can use. You can also download it and make an Excel. Okay. It's totally up to you. And then, so basically, you're just going to have different scholarships down the line here, a spot for website, when it's due. It's also important to just put the year as well, because sometimes it's due like 2 years from now, but that's okay. Just put the due date on there. Put a priority if you want to, and then how much is the award? In this case, it's full tuition, room and board, which is awesome. And then any kind of notes. So like this particular scholarship, the Morehead Cain Scholarship, applies specifically only to University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill. So you might want to put anything that's like special in here, just on notes. And then just a note on requirements, like what is needed, an essay, letter recommendation, also letter recommendation from a counselor for this particular one. So this would be a really good activity, I will say, for the parents who are wondering what they can do to help. And they can start filling out this form. That way, yes, like your student is still going to be asking for those letters of recommendations. Your student is still going to be doing those essays, but having a list here would just help tremendously in terms of time so that your student is not like online for hours, like looking for scholarships on Google. And realistically, they're probably not going to be doing that anyway. So this is just a resource for you. Okay. All right, here. So, okay, so we got to look at what the tracker looks like. And then based on that tracker or any system that you would like to use, just prioritize it by deadline and by fit. You know, I would say it is definitely a long game. It is not something that you want to say, hey, I have only a couple weeks left. Yes, I will share this document with you for sure. And then, hey, like I need to find a scholarship. That's usually not gonna work. It's more like a couple years, like, to say, okay, we know we're gonna go to college, or we know we think we want to go to college, and let's start planning a year or two or 3 or 4 years ahead of time, and then work on it a little bit at a time, something like a few hours a week or even a few hours a month, and then just chomp through it. And who knows, you know, you might get some good traction that way. You may not necessarily win a lot of money, but one of these things is like if you don't try, then you're definitely not going to get anything. So having a plan and having a consistent approach is the most important thing. Okay, so next thing. Okay, so where do we actually go and find scholarships? So a common question I always get asked. There's tons of online databases. FastWeb is kind of the most traditional one that most people use, and you can use more than one. A lot of them, I mean, all of them are free. I would be very cognizant and aware of anything that asks you to pay money because you really shouldn't be paying money just to apply for scholarships, whether it's a database or whether it's a actual scholarship that says you have to pay money to apply. Just be aware because there's a lot of scams out there and you don't want to give out your information like addresses, phone numbers. You know, sometimes they will take those information and there's like no scholarships. Okay. It's just like a scam and they just want your information. So just be very careful of that. But some of these are trustworthy websites that I would recommend and I would use myself. FastWeb, scholarships.com, CapEx, and then Unigo is kind of a newer one that people have started using. So these are all good. FastWeb, you have to be 16 years or older to sign up. So a lot of them will ask you, are you a parent or are you a student? So in this case, it will say like you have to put in your student's birthday, so that they actually are like in high school or really close to graduating before they'll let you go into that database. But a lot of these databases will have very similar scholarships that are listed. So you can go in here and just look like even if your child is younger. Okay. And then another good resource I would say is your high school counselor's office and college financial aid offices. So high school counselors know a lot about local organizations, and that kind of goes into the next bullet here, but they will know like what scholarships the previous graduates from your high school have gotten. Okay, so they would be really good resources. I would always recommend for students and parents to meet their counselors at least once a year, and then maybe twice between the spring of junior year and then the fall of senior year, right? So maybe junior year, you might want to meet them once in the fall, once in the spring, and then senior year, you might want to meet them at least once in the fall and possibly another time in the spring of senior year. So those will be good opportunities to ask your college counselor and say, hey, do you know about any scholarships that our students from this high school have gotten in the past? And do you know of any that would be a good fit for me? A lot of times the school PTA might even have a scholarship. And then I know our school, like they have a music organization, like it's called Music and Art Partners, and they would always apply give out scholarships to students who have achievements in music, but they don't even have to go to school for music. They don't have to be a music major. As long as they were in choir, orchestra, or band, they can apply for those scholarships. And many times those scholarship pools are really small. Like there are maybe 5 people applying for one scholarship. So there's a really good chance that your student might win something. And then college financial aid offices are really good as well. This will especially be good, I will say, kind of going back to what I was saying before about like checking with the college website, maybe the top 3 or 5 colleges, or at least one college that is a safety school. Because you might want to go to that college. If it is a safety school, you want to spend as little money as possible, right? I mean, any college you probably want to spend as little money as possible, but it may not be um realistic to like contact 10 or 12 like different colleges, right? That's kind of up to you. But I would say, 3 or 5 colleges that you think your child has a good chance of going to and they're a good fit college for you, then it's okay to contact their financial aid office even before you apply, right? You don't have to wait until after you already applied and just say, hey, we're really interested in the college, really interested to apply. What are the deadlines for financial aid? What are the deadlines for scholarships? How can I apply? And many times they will give you really good information. And there might even be more detailed information that is not listed on the website. And especially if you sound like that you're really interested in their college and you really want to go, and you can say like, hey, we really want to go to this college. I think my child is a good fit for this college. They're planning on applying for this college, especially for if you're early decision or early action, then you even have a better chance of really making that case of saying like your child is really interested. Then they might actually give you information like, oh yeah, like this scholarship has a higher rate of getting something, or maybe this program, and lots of times that colleges will have scholarships that go with their honors college. So if you're applying for their college but also the additional honors college, then there might be additional money that comes with that honors college. Okay, so really good resources that I think many people don't really utilize. Like, I think it's easy to go online and look at those databases, but they can also be really overwhelming. So I think it's really helpful to just talk to real people, whether it's a counselor or a financial aid office. They're professionals at this and they've been doing it for many years, and they know what scholarships are there and which ones are easier to get. And then local organizations, that this will be good just to like ask neighbors or look at your local newspaper, magazines, like even talk to town hall people. There's almost every like or community has a Rotary, or sometimes like a Lions Club, or sometimes there's an alumni club of the colleges that you might be interested in, chambers of commerce, and then other just local nonprofits, charities that can be there and offer or scholarships. So this is just like really good resource again, because those scholarships are going to be easier to get. Your chances of getting one will be much higher because there's like many times they're restricted to the students from specific schools or who live in specific towns or counties. And then that's going to be a lot easier to get those scholarships compared to a national scholarship. Okay. And then we talked about not paying for any scholarships, applications, or databases. Okay. All right. Okay. So now winning strategies. Okay. So now say you have a list of scholarships and you know which ones are out there, and you can always add more, of course. What do we do next? How do we figure out how to win the scholarships? I would say this is very similar to actually thinking about college application. And I think if you time it well, you can actually save a lot of time, because many of the essays and skills that goes into writing essays for college applications are the same exact skills that are needed for scholarship applications and essays. Okay, so you want to fit, first of all, we talked about this already, but just kind of re-emphasize that we want to find scholarships that fit the specific student, and then you have to make a case for it, right? You feel like it's a good fit, but you want to make sure that the application looks like that the student is a good fit for that scholarship. So whether that's recommendation letters, whether that's essays, activities, grades, whatever it is, you want to package it up so that it really shows that this person is the best person for that scholarship. Many times the scholarships will have like a winner, but then they will have runner-ups. So, don't be discouraged if you're thinking like, oh, it's going to be so hard because they only pick one out of so many. But sometimes they will have like one winner, but then like 5 or even 10 runner-ups who get a smaller amount of money, which, hey, it's free money. So even if it's a smaller amount of money, it's good to take it, right? Writing strong essays, I will say too, like starting ninth grade is a great skill to start practicing writing those strong essays. I think one of my friends today was just like sending me some information on the New York Times writing contest, and I think that's a great idea, to start looking at some of those contests that are out there, practicing writing essays, really low risk. You don't win, that's okay, right? But it's just practicing. And then those essays can be used for scholarships early on. And then we can learn from those and say, okay, what worked, what didn't work, what can I do better? And then getting high quality letters of recommendation. Again, that's another a good skill to learn to have, because just asking your teachers to say, hey, can I have a recommendation letter? And the teacher says yes, that's really not enough. And that's the same thing for college applications. So if we can figure out, how to ask the teachers in a way where they can actually write you high quality letters application or recommendation, then sometimes like those same letters can be used for college. But if we can do that earlier on, then we can make those mistakes early and then learn from those mistakes. One piece of advice I would give is that you never want to only ask by email. You always want to ask at least once in person and then have that conversation. Maybe if it's like 10 minutes, 15 minutes, sit down with the teacher and then just say why you're applying for this scholarship or why you're applying for this college, whatever it is, and what you want your teacher to write. Many times it's a great idea to just give them a bullet point, like give them a list of bullets, like 3 or 4 things that you want them to include. This is not unethical at all. I will say it's actually helping your teacher because, for example, a teacher has 20 students, 30 students. They may know your student pretty well, but they're not going to remember everything. So it's really important for the student to say, I would really like you to highlight these qualities that I have, and then have those qualities written down in the bullet point, maybe even with an example of like a project that you did in that class, or a time that you helped out a classmate in that class, or maybe a time that you struggled in that class and did better, right? So have those examples in there for the teacher so the teacher can be like, oh yeah, I remember when this happened. Oh yeah, they're just um is a good way to remind them of like different specific details that they can include, which they may not regularly would remember. So of course, like, they don't have to use those bullet points. It's really just a helpful tool and a suggestion. So don't feel like, oh, I don't want to tell my teacher, what to write. I want it to be completely from the teacher. Yes, teachers are very good about writing recommendations. Most teachers are very good about writing letters, but they're also very busy people. So I would say have that meeting, have those bullet points, have a list of activities, resume, whatever it is, as much information as you can to help your teacher to write the best letter that they can. Don't inundate them with like a book of like all about yourself, but at least just like a 1-page list of activities or a 1-page resume with some bullet points on what you would want them to highlight, that would be perfect. If I'm the teacher, I would be very happy if you gave that to me. Okay. Follow instructions, right? So a lot of these applications have different steps, like whether it's like letter they have to upload, there might be a maximum amount of words, like in an essay. don't skip optional materials either. So they might say, hey, if you want, you can submit a headshot, a picture of yourself, or if you want, you can submit a video. That all of those things will help you, right? Because a lot of people will just say, oh, well, it's optional. I'm not going to do it, right? If it's optional, still do it because you want to stand out. You want to have that edge compared to other people who may not be adding those things. And any optional materials will just help the committee look at you more like comprehensively to like really understand and know you as a person. They want to give the money to somebody they really feel like is the best candidate. So follow all the instructions, check all your spelling, check all those things. Again, this is a really good practice run for any college applications because you want to do the same thing, right? You want to follow all the instructions and give all the materials that you can possibly give. And then I mentioned this earlier, but creating a consistent plan. So having a weekly plan would be really good. I know this might be really hard during the school year when the student is really busy, but the summer is a great time. And this is why I wanted to kind of start this webinar in the beginning of the summer here is like, okay, so you have 10 weeks in the summer. Let's say we work on one scholarship a week. That's 10 scholarships, right? We can work on. And who knows, out of 10, maybe you get one, and that's great, right? That will be a really good goal to go for like in one summer. But you can, depending on your timing, right? You can create any kind of plan you want, but the consistency is like spending X number of hours a week, right? Say it's 1 hour a week. Okay, this week I'm just gonna do some searches. That's fine. Or 1 hour a week, like I'm gonna write an essay for one scholarship, right? And then just really sticking with it because sometimes like we get into this mode where it's like, oh, I want to look for scholarships and do it for like a whole day. And then the next day it's just like, oh, it's too hard, and then just give up, right? So don't do that. Keep going, just do it like slow and steady, and you will get money if you are slow and steady. I promise you, you will get something if you're doing things every week, even if it's like during just only school breaks or summer, and you're doing that for like 2 or 3 years. I guarantee you will win something. Okay. All right. So this is kind of the part where I'm going to be giving you guys some examples of scholarships, and some of you may know some of these already. Some of these might be new to you, but I just want to kind of give an example of some of the scholarships that are out there that I think we should all know about because a lot of these are really good ones. So the first one, this slide is all about full scholarships that are basically all of your tuition. And I think all of them have, yeah, well, only one of them don't have room and board, but most of these have like full tuition, room and board. Okay, so that's really good. And then you don't have to have financial need, which is also good for a lot of students who, middle class, like it's really hard sometimes where if you're super rich, then you can afford anything. But then if you're like on the poverty line, then you also kind of get a lot of things for free. But if you're like middle class or upper middle class, and it's like, okay, you kind of colleges want you to pay almost the whole tuition. It's like, what do I do? And it's so expensive. So the STEM scholarship, the scholars, and all of these are links. So what I can do is send you the file or the link to the file after this presentation, so you have access to all of these links. The STEM Scholars there's 37 partner colleges. All of them are really good colleges, and they are up to $90,000 per year. And I think it's full year, like full 4 years renewable. So many scholarships are renewable. So it's not just the first year, but if you keep up your GPA, your grades, you can renew them for all 4 years, which is awesome. So you only apply once and you can just renew them. So this one is a really good one, and especially if you're interested in any of these 37 partner colleges. The Davidson Scholarship is up to $100,000 for any college. And then the GE Reagan Scholarship, this is a legacy from President Reagan, is up to 40K for any college. And then the Coolidge Scholarship is a full tuition one. This is a legacy from President Coolidge, and full tuition with room and board. So these will be ones that I will say I'm personally going to be checking out, because who can say no to full scholarship with room and board, right? I mean, obviously these are going to be really difficult, right? A lot of competition, but if you don't know about them and you're not applying for them, you're automatically out. So I will say, they might be good ones to consider. Okay. And then let's see, did I go through? Yeah, this one. Okay. So I think a lot of our audience here, and me personally, like, are Asian American. So there are some scholarships out there that are specifically for Asian American students, and I just want to highlight a few of them here. And some of my students actually have gotten some of these, which is awesome. And they are a little bit easier to get because you have to be Asian American to even apply, to even have a chance. So there's a couple, 3 of them here. I mean, it's not full tuition, but if you win some, it's great. It's it helps, right? Every little bit helps. Okay. And then I also want to just highlight too, just some examples of colleges that do offer full scholarships now. Like, for example, like the Ivies, they do not offer merit scholarships. They only offer need-based scholarships. And then I know that some state colleges will offer full scholarships. So these are just an example of colleges that do offer full merit-based tuition scholarships. So if you have a student who is interested in any of these schools, then definitely look at their website and then apply, because a lot of these full tuition scholarships do have a separate application, which is often an earlier deadline compared to the regular college application deadline. Okay, so next one. Okay, and then there's some contests, right? So the difference between scholarships and contests. Scholarships is kind of like, most of them are more renewable, right? Most of them you win and then you can get it for 4 years. Yes, like there is a competition, but they're usually looking at a more comprehensive view of the student. So whether it's an essay, grades, transcript, SAT scores, ACT scores, letters of recommendation. They're looking at many different things, and they're evaluating the student as a person. Maybe it has to do with their extracurriculars and their achievement or project or anything like that. But contests are a little bit simpler. It's basically like you're submitting a piece of artwork or an essay, and that is, your selection is strictly based on that thing that you submit. So like Doodle for Google, right? Like you're just creating a artwork, and anybody can do this. It does not have to be super fancy. I'm sure you've seen a lot of the Doodle for Googles that are out there. They come once in a while for those holidays, right? So you can see that that's, some of them are just like a lot of fun, and a lot of students really like to do it just for fun. It doesn't take a lot of time. So a lot of these essays will be a little bit more time efficient, like an essay contest. There's a greeting card contest, and then the Elks have a scholarship as well. The Elks one is only for seniors, and it is a national contest. But the reason I put it up here is like there's $30,000 per winner, and there's 20 winners. Okay, so that's a lot of winners. And then there's like 480 runners up. So they're giving away 500 scholarships, right? So 20 of them are big, and then 480 of them are smaller, but you have a really good chance, I think, because compared to, some of the other ones, just because they are giving away so many winners. Okay. And then there's like some strange and quirky ones too, because like I feel like a lot of teenagers, they just sometimes need to have a little bit of fun. And if you say like, oh yeah, there's like this funny thing or this fun thing to do, they're more likely to do it compared to just saying like, okay, just write a boring essay about, yourself or whatever, or write a boring essay about like current events, right? So you might have a student who has like a specific interest, like a zombie apocalypse or ice cream flavor of the month. There's also a scholarship for Star Trek fans, right? There's a scholarship for people who are interested in vegetarian. You don't even have to be vegetarian to write it, but you can just write about like being a vegetarian or why somebody would like to be a vegetarian. There's also like a crossword maker. You can make crossword puzzle. There's also like a duct tape, like make a dress or a tuxedo out of duct tape for prom, and then there's a prize for that, right? So there's just like so much out there. I don't have space to put all of the different scholarships that are out there. And of course, like I don't know, your specific students, so I don't know what specifically they'll be interested in, but I just wanted to highlight a few out there just so you can get inspired maybe and just say, hey, maybe there's something out there that my student would be interested in. And I think if you can even take away like one or two scholarships that you want to apply for, or your student will be motivated to apply for, then I think I would call that a success. Okay. So I think that's pretty much all the information that I had for today. Let's see, time is it? Oh yeah, okay. Yeah. So we have some time here. I would love to take some questions. Anybody has any questions, thoughts, comments? Love to hear what you think about scholarships, or if you guys know of any scholarships you want to share, that would be awesome as well.